Hello my friend and welcome to my channel Faisal Azib. In this video I will talk about the three different ways of declaring variable in JavaScript. So up until this point we have always used the let keyword to declare variables. However, there are also const and var. Now let and const were introduced in ES6 and so they are more modern JavaScript, while the var keyword is the old way of declaring variables. So let's learn how they are different and which one to use in which situation. We use the let keyword to declare variables that can change later, so basically during the execution of our program. And that's exactly what we did here, student, as you can see. Okay? So we use let to declare is student and then we change it later to yes. Another example I would say is let the age equal let age equal 40, for example. Okay, at this point of the program, and then in another point of the program we can change it to something else. For example, when the person turns to 41, okay, like this. And then the age, of course, changed from 40 to 41. And so it is perfectly okay to declare variable with let at one point in the program and then later assign a new value to it. Good. In technical terms, we call this reassigning a value to a variable. I repeat, we call this reassigning a value to a variable. It is a technical term that we use. Or also, we say that we mutate the age variable. I repeat, we mutate the age variable in this case. So, it was 40 and now it is 41. And so we mutated the variable, okay? So that's a term that you will hear all the time in the JavaScript world. 99% you will learn of this term is, mutate variable. So when we need to mutate the variable, that's the perfect use case for using let. And then also count for the case that we want to declare empty variables. For example, as we did here, let year, okay? And then later, reassign that variable to 1990. And sometimes you actually do this in practice. For example, when we want to declare all the variables at the top of the file, okay? From here, but only assign actual value to them later in the program. For example, based on some condition. Now, on the other hand, we use the const keyword to declare variables that are not supposed to change. I repeat, we use the const variable to declare const keyword, to declare variable that are not supposed to change at any point in the future. Okay, we never change, never. So the value in a const variable cannot be changed. For example, let's say the birth year, so const birth year as a good case equal I forgot the camel case, birth year equal 40. No, not 40. I mean 90. It's like this. It's not the age. Okay. If we then try to reassign this variable, so let's say for example birth year equal 1993. Okay, it should not work. So let's test that. So I will load the page. As you can see, I have this error, assignment to const type error, assignment to constant variable. And so that's exactly what the constant keyword does. Okay? It creates a variable that we cannot reassign, or in technical terms, an immutable variable. I repeat, we call this an immutable variable. So, a variable that cannot be mutated. Okay? And the birth year is a perfect example for that, because in fact, the birth year of the person can never change, while the age, of course, can change. And so that's why we used let for the age and const for the birth year. Have you understand here? I hope. That makes sense. Now, the fact that variable created with const are immutable also means that we cannot declare empty const variable. For example, I will write const course like this. Okay? This is not legal. So if I reload the page here, so before I will just comment this, Control slash to get the previous error. So I reload. As you can see, uncode syntax error, missing initializer in const declaration. And so this error message means that when using const, we need basically an initial value. Okay, so just like here. I put, like, for example, like this. JavaScript. Okay. Now, with these two different ways of declaring variables, you will probably ask, should I use let or should I use const to declare a new variable? Good. As best practice for writing clean code, I always recommend you to use const by default and let only when you are really sure that the variable needs to change at some point in the future. For example, when you have a variable that's really never supposed to change, like this birth year, you should always use const, okay, to declare your variable. Also, if you are sure that the age variable is never changing inside your program, you should declare it using const as well. The reason for this is that it's good practice to have as little variable mutation or variable change as possible, because changing variable introduces a potential to create bugs in your program. So basically errors in your code. So again, by default, always just use const and let. When you are sure that the value of the variable needs to change at some point in your code, and so for now, I will probably use the const way of declaring variable as much as possible in this course. Now, there is also a third way in JavaScript of declaring variables, which is the var keyword. But this one should actually be completely avoided. Okay? However, we should still know how it works for legacy reason, because you will see this may be in older code or some older tutorials that you will find online. So let's take a look at how it works. So var is basically the old way of defining variables prior to ES6, and at first sight it works actually pretty much the same as let keyword. So we can write var job equal programmer. Okay, and then just like we with let, we can change the value of the variable later, just like this, job equal teacher. Oops. Okay, So let's just reload our page now. And we didn't get any errors, which means that it is basically allowed to mutate this job variable when we use var keyword. Okay? Now, although it looks like var and let are very similar below the surface, they are actually pretty different, and actually there are also many differences between let, const and var. So between all three of them. And you will learn all about this difference later in other section. Because this is actually really important stuff. Okay? And I know that I keep saying that you will learn more topics later in the course. But the truth is that learning is really not linear. It cannot happen in linear way. So you sometimes need more advanced things right now, even without understanding them. But that's not a problem because you will understand them eventually. So, right now, it would really not be useful for you to know that the let is block scoped and the var is function scoped. Okay? Don't worry about this. Because you don't even know what the block or what the function really is. And so, we will learn about this difference in other section, inshallah. For now, what matters is that you should basically never use var. Okay? Now, just to finish, some people will probably point out that we actually don't even have to declare a variable at all because it is actually not mandatory. We can just write something like this. Let or last name. Sorry, where I put it. Last name equal Azib in my case. Okay? And then we can just use this variable name in this case by logging it to the console, and JavaScript will happily execute this script even without declaring a variable. So look, log. Oops, sorry, I use a shortcut console.log and last name. Let's see. Do you see? I haven't declared here let or var or const. It worked perfectly. So we didn't use let nor const nor var in this case, but it is still worked. However, this is actually a pretty terrible idea because this doesn't create a variable in the current so-called scope. Don't worry about this term for this moment. Instead, JavaScript will create property on the global object. And so once again, you will understand a little bit later what all of this means. But what matters is that you should always properly, I repeat, you should always properly declare variables. Okay? Never just write a variable like this without really declaring it. Great. You are doing great progress here. Even though our code doesn't really do anything yet, and we are not really writing any real application yet. But we still need to get some fundamental down before we can do that. And so that's really important. And that's why I am stressing all the little details about everything here. And I hope you see how important that is for your progress. Okay? And don't worry, we will get to the cool stuff even a bit later in this first section, inshallah. But for now, in next video, inshallah, we will talk about operators in JavaScript. So, see you brothers to the next video, inshallah. Don't worry to subscribe to my channel, Faisal Azib, and to click in the bells button to receive all the new video. Also, to follow me on Instagram, teams.winners and Faisal.checo. And in Twitters, it's teams winners. Take care of us. I tell you goodbye. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.